Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to be going over an article here, or actually it's a Reddit post from a woman who completely destroys her marriage. I mean, it goes completely down the tubes, and she writes here about everything that she did and thought and felt along the way, all the crap she puts her husband through, and at the end of the article, after obviously a couple of years, realizes that, hey, the grass isn't greener on the other side. I was absolutely awful to my husband, awful to my kids, the whole 9 yards, and goes from there. So for any of you guys that are ever thinking about getting married, I want you to stop what you're doing and listen to this video, and you'll see about a lot of the things that I talk about that go wrong, because it can happen. And what's also really good about this article, or this post, is that she does and says a lot of things go on in this that I talk about in my videos. A lot of videos that I've done certain subjects on come up in this video, this article here. And a lot of things I warn you guys about. Now, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but as I go along through this post, what she writes about, I'm going to point these things out because they're really important to understand and realize that these things do happen. These are things that women do in relationships, and also the mistakes that guys will make, and the negative impact that these mistakes will cause. And so for any of you guys that are thinking about getting married, or any of you guys that are in relationships or in marriages right now, these things, you're going to see what happens. Because the guy that she's married to, you can tell he's a really good guy, but the guy, I mean, he doesn't help himself. There are things he does that just completely make the situation even worse. And I'm going to be fair to the guy, because obviously he is put through hell, but he doesn't help himself. So by listening to this story, you guys, I'm going to help spare you some of the potential agony if you are indeed married or in a relationship, and that way you can avoid these things. So, title of this is called 6 Months Later, Divorcing My Husband Was a Huge Mistake. This one is long, but worth for everyone to read. And she's right, it is worth listening to. Starts out saying, if I could give anyone a piece of advice for divorce, it would be to not do it under normal circumstances. If your spouse is beating you or threatening you or your children, then of course, get out and fast. That's reasonable. That's one of the few reasonable things she says in this whole article here. In my case, there was no abuse. We were together for 8 years. That was mostly good, and we have 4 kids. Right around 5 years, I got a promotion at work, and I got it in my head that my ex-husband was dragging me down, or at least holding me back from more success and a better life. I've done videos where women, they get a promotion at work and start making more money than their husband or fiance, and all of a sudden they see their husband or fiance in a completely different light. All of a sudden they're not as attracted to them because now the woman has higher status, is making more money. And a lot of videos I've done where women are complaining there are no good men out there because they don't make enough money. Well, these are also women that have good positions in companies, make good money, but I said before, women are going to be drawn to and attracted to guys that have higher status than them. The alpha male, or whatever you want to call it, but that's what it is. And you can see here, everything's pretty good. She gets a promotion at work, making more money, and all of a sudden, he's holding me back. I've done videos on this, and I've heard stories about this, and I'm sure some of you guys may have known people been in this situation. That's number one. It says here, we never had a lot of money, but with my promotion, I was now making more than he was. I started working longer hours, and at the same time, his hours were cut, so he was at home more. I really began to resent him because he was home and because he got to spend more time with the kids. Most nights, when I got home, they were already getting ready for bed, if not already sleeping. After a few months of my new job, it was clear to me that things were not going well at home without me there. Some nights, the dishes weren't done when I got home, or the kids hadn't eaten, or whatever else I could think of to be mad at him about. It really didn't matter. He kept saying that he would try harder, but that it was hard being at home all the time. That always made me really mad. Well, I'm going to stop right here and say that these are a couple things that I can understand where she's coming from. First of all, guys, let me make this abundantly clear. For you guys that are married or in relationships, listen to me. Women do not want to be your mommy. In other words, They want a grown-ass man that is going to take care of business. So if you lose your job or your hours are cut back significantly at work, it is your job to get off your ass and do whatever you got to do to either get another job or something to make up for what was a loss in terms of hours. Okay? They don't want to be your mommy. Okay? They want a man. And I'm telling you, if you're in this situation, be a man, get off your ass. And this guy here, even though he was bummed out about it, and I totally get, you lose your job, you're feeling depressed, but you got to take care of business. You got to take care of your family or take care of yourself. So you need every day to be out there researching what jobs are available, sending out resumes, going to interviews, whatever you got to do to get things back on track. And if you do that, even though your wife or your lady will obviously be, tense, on edge, she'll at least see that you're making the effort. But on the other hand, if you're just sitting on your ass feeling sorry for yourself and watching TV all day, watch what happens. She's going to get bitter and resentful real quick. And if it goes on too long, either she's out of there or you are, okay? Because, when it comes to love, and women have kind of a different love than guys do, that love, a vast majority of the time, is contingent that you have a job and you fulfill your role and take care of business. Because they don't want to, okay? Oh, also, the other thing I agree with, if that guy was at home all the time, for God's sakes, you should have kept the house in order. He has 4 kids. Give him some chores. They shouldn't have dishes piled to the ceiling, and the kids shouldn't have, gone to bed without any food. I mean, come on here. If you're in this situation, at least take care of that part, okay? That's ridiculous. Don't be a slob. Now, again, this is coming from her point of view, but given the fact, let's say that this is accurate, I will say that this guy isn't helping himself in this situation. However, what's about to happen to him in terms of how she treats him and so forth, believe me, shows she is truly the Wicked Witch of the West. Okay, I've done my rant. So basically, it goes on to say, for the next couple of years, things kept getting worse. My hours weren't any shorter, and his were on and off full time. There was no convenient time for him to be working full time because of my hours, but we also needed the money. It always boils down to finances, guys. Whenever he brought up the contradiction, I would tell him that he needed to figure it out. See? They want a grown-ass man to take care of things, not the woman doesn't want to be the mommy. I knew that it would bother him, so I started saying that a lot and for everything that I could. So she's trying to rattle his cage. And while I get it on one part, also notice how she's not being supportive. You're only going to get so much support before the woman starts really losing her mind. I really started to resent him, and I pulled away from him. I knew that I was hurting him, but I didn't care. Here we go. This is where it gets ugly, guys. If he didn't want to be hurt, then he would at least try to make me happy. Bullshit. And you're going to see this guy does everything he can to try to make her happy. And no matter what he does, he can't make her happy. But the problem is, you're going to see, guys, is that he keeps trying and trying and trying, and she keeps taking. And he acts weak and like a doormat. And do you think that she respected and loved him more for that? No. She saw him as less and less attractive and resented him for that. That is why, if you are mistreated, you got to stand up for yourself. Otherwise, it's going to get worse and worse, as you're about to see. I used the same thing to justify when I started to talk to another guy at work. Now she's starting to cheat on him. I thought he was just a friend, but talking at work turned into texting at home, and then pictures and videos, and then trying to sneak some alone time with him. I knew that it was wrong, but it made me feel so alive. And my husband had not made me feel that in years. Okay, well, if you're not feeling that way, then the woman should talk to the guy or maybe do some couples therapy or whatever, or end it. Not cheat on the guy. But what's easier? But obviously she's so resentful of him, this is what she does. I was tired of being unhappy, and I was doing this for me. The worst was the night that I came home at a reasonable time and found that he had cleaned the whole house, cooked the whole family dinner, and picked out a movie for all of us to watch together. This would have made me swoon a couple of years earlier, but that night I couldn't even look at him, and I pretended to be sick. Well, that's real nice of her. I spent the rest of the night in bed while he waited on me and checked on me and even made me different food and brought it to me in bed. It made me feel terrible, and then it made me angry that he made me feel that way. And by the end of the night, I was texting with the other guy. She's something. But again, guys, see how this guy is doing the nice guy route, constantly doing all these things for her, even though she treats him like crap. And you got to stand up for yourself and not tolerate it. So again, even though she's being a total witch here, this guy isn't helping his situation. So any of you guys are in this situation, you must pay attention to this. Over the next month or two, from that night, it did not matter what he did. He was wrong just for breathing most days. He would get so upset with how I was treating him, and I would just wait and egg him on into losing it because I knew it would happen eventually. After most of the fights we had, he would apologize for whatever I told him he did wrong, if there even was something. So what have I told you guys in previous videos about women that can just out of nowhere pick fights and start a whole lot of drama? And when they do, you walk away. You don't stay there and fight. You don't give her that satisfaction, because if you start getting all emotional and worked up, you're moving into your feminine while she's moving into her masculine. And your woman doesn't want you to act feminine. She wants you to act like a man. So you start fighting and carrying on, you're acting like her. You walk away, you leave. And you make that point. Also, he's apologizing for her starting shit. She starts this fight. She starts this drama on purpose. She's admitting this. This is why you don't apologize. And you see how she sees this as weakness, and this continues on and on. Okay, I've talked about this before, and I've gotten a lot of hate about this, but here's a real life example of what happens when you do these things. So it goes on. She goes on to say, I would usually find a way to make him feel even worse. I knew that I was right because he was wrong, and that was all that mattered to me. I even pretended that I didn't care when he found out about my relationship with the guy from work. It really destroyed me inside to see him holding back tears, but I wasn't going to let him see that. He was at his weakest, and that was when I chose to tell him that I wanted a divorce. See that right there? He was at his weakest. You don't display weakness. Weakness makes women, it turns them off, they lose their attraction for you, and eventually they can start resenting you. And doing all these things to test the fuck out of you to see if you will stand up to them, check them, and be the man they want. I'm not saying this is right, but I'm telling you guys this is how it goes. And yes, to my haters who are watching this, I have experience in this department. Because I learned the hard way when I was younger. I could almost hear his heart shattering inside his chest. He talked and fought and said that we could work through it together. I really wasn't interested in fixing our marriage, but I mostly ended things with the other guy, but only because I knew I could get it back if I wanted it. See there? I could see that he was trying, and occasionally I would let him know, but for the most part, I kept being a huge bitch to him for any and all reasons that I could think of. I'm not sure how much more the man could have done to make me happy, besides finding me a job that paid enough for me not to have to work at all. Okay, guys, so the You Know What movement has conditioned women to believe that, and society, that a woman could go get a job and make more money than the guy, and everything will be smooth and cool, or even the woman could get a job and be the breadwinner, and the guy could be at home and be Mr. Mom, and everything will be fine and dandy. But in reality, not in La La Land, a lot of women, they'll end up having their first child, and after maternity leave is over, they get resentful towards the guy because they have to go back to work and they really want to be home with their baby or their other children. But they have to go back because they're the breadwinner. And this, you think I'm full of shit? I've known women that have done this to different friends of mine and people I've been acquainted with and stories I've read about. So this goes to show you that thanks to the You Know What movement, this is some of the damage it's caused. And it's really unfortunate. And these poor guys that get sucked into this and end up being in these miserable marriages when reality sets in. Referring to the job, he said he was looking and finding there are two different things. It was around this time that I discovered this group and a few others. I started posting things about him, from my perspective only. And I got so much positive feedback for how I was feeling that I knew I was right. She was obviously posting things on Reddit and other things online and getting a lot of attention and validation. I had the whole internet telling me how terrible he is. I started saying awful things to him, and I even outright ignoring him. I was so confident with mine and everyone else's opinion that I contacted a lawyer and within a couple weeks had filed for divorce. I continued to use this site and a couple others to validate my feelings and for encouragement to go through with it. And finally, it was done. What I tell you about validating women and how much they need validation? It went pretty smoothly. Ex-husband didn't ask for much besides to not get divorced and try to work it out. I didn't care about it though. He was broken, but I was free. I could do whatever I wanted without having to feel any guilt or answer to anybody. It was an amazing feeling of freedom. It didn't last long though. In the first month after he moved out, I missed garbage day 3 times. There was also rarely a single clean dish, and the laundry sat in piles so long that I had to start doing the sniff test to see if it could be worn again. I also never saw my kids more miserable. Yeah, thanks, Mom. My oldest had seen some of the messages from the other guy months earlier, and she knew the ex-husband still wanted to work it out. It didn't take long for her to stop talking to me at all except to say that she wanted to go to the ex-husband's house. The others all told me that they wanted to live with the ex-husband too. Poor kids. I mean, I really feel bad for them. You know, Mom's crazy. And Dad's obviously, in spite of his mistakes, a good guy. He just doesn't get it. And now the kids are suffering. I did my best to try to make them happy, but I ended up just buying them toys all the time, and the happiness only lasted minutes. I also was having a lot of trouble with work. Being alone, I couldn't work all those extra hours that I was expected to do. I finally gave in and started calling my ex-husband to watch the kids. He would always come over as soon as he could, and he always asked me if I needed anything. So after all the hell she's put him through, he's still doing the nice guy routine. Now I get it, he wants to do things for his kids, but it's beyond that. He's still doing things for her. And this is exactly the kind of trouble, this is what got him into trouble in the first place, okay? And you see, guys, on the one hand, I feel bad for this guy. I really do. On the other hand, you know, he brought a lot of this on himself. And so I'm doing this video so any of you guys fall into this situation, you know what can happen if you keep doing the nice guy routine. You don't stand up for yourself and lay down the law. It will turn into an absolute disaster. When I would get home, I would finally clean dishes and I would find clean dishes and laundry and even dinner sometimes. He would never say too much after I got home. He would just say to call him if I needed anything and leave. So the guy was going to her house. Even though she divorced him, put him through hell, took the kids, and made his life miserable, he was still going over there and doing the dishes, cooking meals, folding laundry. The guy shouldn't do any of that. One night he took out the garbage and brought it to the curb because it was garbage night and I forgot again. He always looked so sad when it was time to go. Finally, after a couple of months, my friends convinced me to go out on a date. It was for dinner and a movie, and I was excited and hopeful. But at dinner, I started getting a feeling of overwhelming guilt. It got so bad that I ended up not even going to the movie. A week and about 1 million tears later, I was on the therapist's couch. I told her everything that had happened starting with the promotion that I got at work. She did not agree with me or with any of the encouragement to divorce that I got. I ended up in her office 2 and 3 times a week. And the more I talked to prove that I was right, the more that I started to see how wrong I was. It was truly heartbreaking. I don't know if I cried as much in my whole life as I did in the first month in her office. Aw, poor baby. After about $2,000 of therapy sessions, I learned that my ex-husband had his faults, but it figured that mine were also so much worse. Goddamn right they were so much worse. I did so many awful things and said awful things I wouldn't want to be with me. But he did. I still remember him asking me in the meeting with the lawyer to please not go through with it. I did go through with it, and then later I bragged on how great it felt. I was so wrong, and now I can see it. A couple weeks ago, I went outside with him when he was leaving the house. I asked him about getting back together. When he looked me in his eyes were full of tears, and a couple went down his cheeks. He told me that he didn't know if he could. He said that the pain had been too much for too long, and that if we get back together, that I might just turn around and do it to him again. You bet your ass she would do it to him again. Abso-fucking-lutely she would do it again. And because this guy probably hasn't learned anything, and, you know, what he would need is to start having guys that have experience in this department help him and tell him where he went wrong. But yeah, it would happen again. Maybe not right away, but only be a matter of time. He said that he always thought I would realize how much he loved me and stop up until I signed the divorce papers and let out a big, over-exaggerated sigh of relief. He said that hurt him more than anything else, and he doesn't know if he can ever trust me again. I don't blame him. I destroyed a man who, looking back, was a great husband. I deprived my kids of having a great father in the house with them, and I took his kids away from him. And me, the one who pushed for the divorce, expecting happiness and a life of freedom, spent all my free time sitting at home or sitting on a therapist's couch. Please don't take the advice on anyone on this site or any other about getting a divorce. If your marriage is bad, look at yourself first and see if you can make changes. This is advice for men and women. Getting divorced is not fun. Being divorced is not fun. And seeing your husband broken and your children never happy because of your actions is the most painful experience that I can imagine. I wish all of you well and hope that you will give your marriages a second chance. Well, that woman in her situation, and many women like that, they're not thinking logically. See, right now, she's thinking logically and talking logically. But earlier in the article, everything was emotion. And women are driven by emotion. Men generally are driven by logic. Okay? Not all the time, but a majority of the time. And you can see now she's reflecting. And if she truly, genuinely is sorry, then good for her. But it doesn't excuse all the shit she put that guy through. And I hope like hell that this guy has moved on from her, learned a lot of things about women, and gets a good second chance. Because he's a good guy. He's screwed up a lot, but I hope he's learned. Nobody's perfect. And for any of you guys in this situation, please understand, you make these mistakes, I guarantee you can expect some of the same crap to happen. So, alright guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below, let me know what you think about this, and be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I will talk to you next time.